Okay, we are right back at you. Remember to smash that button, like, share, and subscribe. Do that for us. We appreciate you so much. And we are currently talking about the deformation of African people. Now, where we left off, let's, and I want to remind you, some of the things that were said and how iteration is going to be necessary. Okay, so that we get it, so that we get it, and you can actually tell you can actually really tell where people's energy fields are in regards to how they respond. People always let you know that. See, one thing about it you have to remember is energy don't lie. And so people by their energy are always lying. You follow me? They're always lying. You say one thing out of your mouth, but your energy field is you're not behaving by universal laws. See, because within your energy field has to support that. And when you are deviating for universal laws, you only create within yourself an imbalance of the internal organisms that are working within you universally. You have to understand that, understand that within you, there's a universal process that is ongoing simultaneously all the time. And so again, when we mentioned these structures in Kemet and how that these structures, and I'll go over that one more time, and how that these structures, the temple in which the therapy was the contemplation of the symmetrical of geometric solids. In other words, therapy was the image of mathematical cubes, octagons, and various forms of the chorons, if I'm saying that right. Each one placed upon an altar or pedestal for the contemplation. Now listen to the language. Each of them were placed upon an altar. Now some Christians will say, there he go with that idol worship. That's idol worship. It's amazing how people who don't do no research and no studying will be quick to jump and to say something totally against their own magnetic field. For those of you who get it, you're going to be very powerful. And again, it says each one that was placed upon an altar or pedestal for the contemplation. Understand the words. For the what? Contemplation. Contemplation is what? That you're contemplating something. But listen. For Sephra. Sephra was a deity. All was symmetrical, geometric solids. They were symmetrical, geometrical solids. So it means that the symmetrical and geometrical solids were the pillars that they were looking at, which had engravings of them on it with hieroglyphs, with writings of them understanding the Neteru of the universe, which completed these geometrical solids were perfect and complete instruction. They were complete instruction of the universe. So they saw themselves complete in the universe by the structures that were looking back at them. To look upon them was therapeutic. To look upon them accepted their energy. So when they looked upon these structures, their energy was accepted like, yes, you're right. It was a mirror as a reality in our lives. Though the solid stone structures weren't alive, they only gave their appearance of value, but actually they were alive. They were alive. Do you hear me? I'm reading that again. They were alive. Every form in nature, natural or artificial, has a magnetic field. So that's where you come in. I said you had a magnetic field. But you know what? I'm not gonna go because I'm going into another podcast, and we're gonna do that some other time. So we're gonna continue with what we were discussing. Okay. So we're back to this. And it says, as I formerly read, The Birth of a Nation was based on a novel by Ivan Dixon called The Klansman, which glorified the Ku Klux Klan and talked about how it rescued the South from all these freed slaves, right? But in essence, what was that the movie? Was that what it was really about? For those of you who saw the movie, this was one of the most profound, not profound, but this was one of the most watched movies in history at that time. Now listen, it talked about how they rescued the South from all these free slaves that were beginning to destroy what was present. This movie therefore helped the South to reconceive its images in ways that were positive, especially the role that was played by the Klan. The Birth of a Nation was, with its manipulation of the black image, was one of the factors that caused the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, which we all know what that is, right? Which really has no power today because they're receiving money from the untouchables. So you don't have no power when you're receiving money from them. So they know how to water down your organizations where you really can't do anything. You just like your poster child. That's all you are. To come into existence aggressively, national boycotts to ban this movie were organized, yet it was highly successful at the box office as the country at large was praising this type of movie. They loved it. They loved it. They was cheering. Woo! And you know who was doing the most cheering because you know who watched it. You know no black folks wasn't cheering that, and if they were, you know who they were. This current appreciations of this movie regarding what some white Americans had learned was that it fed a subliminal need to identify with those values that were projected in these movies. People were also fascinated with the movie Gone with the Wind as they began talking about how good life was before the slaves were free. Another similar type of movie was Out of Africa, where the white settlers looked back and talked about how good it used to be in Africa before Africans took over their country. Their country. Listen to this. Their country, y'all. Since the United States, and I'm going to say something, is predominantly white, it will project positive image of itself with which should be understood in that way. The Rambo type image, for example, is a total fabrication because that was not the way the heroic Vietnam veteran lived. They said to themselves, but Hollywood will always try to promote and romanticize the image of the white male. That's what they do. And in that particular movie, they talked about Rambo, it was really, if you ask me, it was really it was really a slap in the face to a lot of the brothers that went to Vietnam, and even the white brothers. It was a slap in their face as well, because it didn't happen like that. They lost too many people. Something in the tune of like 58,000 people were slaughtered in Vietnam. So it really wasn't a one war, as reportedly stated so many times. But this is what I was going to say, if I could remember my thought. You have to understand that everything that is done has an agenda. And that you have people who are still trying to find themselves in history. And I also said before is that there is only and I want to sound biased, but there is only really one there's a group of people on the planet who have practiced spirituality for centuries. And as I said, everyone else is just imitating. Is just imitating. And what I would say is that the closest to come to the Kemetic structure that was set up thousands of years ago, I would have to probably say it would be the Tibetans and the Asian populace, okay? Because when you're talking about, millennia and history and so forth and so on, we're going back to the Champas and the mountain yards and the Nagas of India and the Buddhas and so forth. And we know that the Buddhas were dark-skinned, woolly-haired people as well. And of course, over time, like anywhere else, you've had that faction of migration of people who eventually usurped those areas and became the dominant populace in those geographic areas. Okay, and you can say that you can liken that into whether or not it was genetics or intermingling, of course, would kind of like be the same thing, so forth and so on. But with that being said, I would have to say that in theory, there are just people doing things in practice and in theory as opposed to being it. You follow me? There's a difference. There's a difference in being, and there's a difference in going to a particular place or a particular vocation and practicing. Follow me? So this is what has happened. And so the point that I made, and I think I made it before, is that if we had all of these spiritual people on the planet, think about this. Because now there are people who are appropriating your sacred science, your sacred geometry. They know this better than you do. But what they can't do is to become inferior 9. That's what they can't do. And so when you see all of these movies and you see the means in which they're trying to attain inferior 9 relevance and spirituality, oftentimes, as I just read a moment ago, oftentimes it has to be done through artificial means. And this is why we have now, today in our society, this new apparatus that's called AI, artificial intelligence, to replace, that's why we got to pay attention, to replace the human element. So let's move on. Here is that same cliche again, highlighting the stereotype of a weak, negative image of the black male placed next to a positive image of the white male. And here it is again with the cool Robert Redford type hero on the left, and sitting next to him is a frightened, horrified black male with bulging eyes. Total deprivation and demeaning and being pejorative in the whole 9 yards. And so this is why when you brothers, we used to say back in the day, man, you dressed to the 9. A lot of y'all didn't even know. A lot of you didn't even know, and I myself didn't even know what we were saying. When you were saying dressed to the 9, you was talking about 9 ether. You was talking about 9 ether, being a 9 ether being and not realizing what was coming out of your mouth. But it was coming out of your mouth by the providence of the Creator. 9 ether, 9 months for a woman to have a baby. There are 9 planets, right? And we can go on and on. But we'll be talking about, again, the secret secretion. And that's going to be profound too. So, and here it is. And I'm so excited about it. And I know y'all probably saying, man, he's like giving us so much. Unshackle your mind. And it talks about the inferiority of the black man to the white man's supremacy. Okay, if you plant weed in a vegetable garden, a poor harvest will result. The same thing will happen with people. Various types of weed have been planted in the minds of black people. with the larger society who seem to have suffered a convenient memory loss, looking forward to a bountiful harvest. However, to understand how things appear in the present, the not too distant past needs to be investigated. And see, this is why I say a lot of us, you have to stop using substances that block your magnetic field. Alcohol, weed, whatever you're doing, pipe, crack, whatever, is blocking your magnetic field. The other thing is this. The other thing is this. You are an internal being. And in order for you my brother and my sister, to reach that ascension, there are a lot of things actually, you're going to have to let go of. See, because if you don't have no intentions on reaching it, then of course, hey, that's totally up to you. But for those of you who want to, because this is your way out. And see, don't get stuck. Don't get stuck and believing that religion is going to get you out. See, because that was a wedge that was thrown in to block you from that ascension. And you don't understand that it's going to be you who plays that pivotal role of formulating your etherical magnetic field to take you to that next dimension. That's why I used to say years ago, people used to look at me crazy. They used to look at me real crazy, like, what's wrong with him? When we would talk about, being born and all that. And I used to say, I was always here. And they would look at me and like, see, because the concept and perception of being born to some people is that is your beginning. See, in all of these things, which I'm saying to you, all of these things from a Western theological perspective have been infused in you to make you forget. See, but in your memory, in your ancient memory, locked in your inferior DNA is a memory of your past life, your spiritual past life. Just like when you go somewhere and you have deja vu, and you be like, I've been here before. When you've had those type of experiences, it's because you have been. It's because you have been in another life, your spiritual life. And at that time, you had an out-of-body experience. The Creator was giving you a glimpse. But because you were so meshed in the material plane, you didn't get it. When blacks people did not perform in the way whites expected them to, or when they were not readily available, white people would paint themselves black in order to continue playing those negative, stereotypical black roles. This poster and it's showing and on the poster it says nigga makeup without blacking. And it got a bulging-eyed black person with, big buck teeth. And boy, the caricatures that they did about us, man, it's just terrible. And it's taken from Johnny's catalog, which was circulated all over the country advertising what they call nigga makeup. White people could now buy nigga makeup or burnt cork to paint their faces black and then go out to either portray these distorted images of black people or to play roles in movies about black people of which they knew nothing about. It is a peculiar, pervasive, twisted kind of connection. The projection of certain kinds of qualities that are inside the minds of the person who is doing this to another racial group of people. Take note, for example, of what is taking place in this photo. A white actor on the left is dressed up in burnt cork to look black, and notice that the role he is playing is the same role that the black actors were hired to play. This white actor is also portraying a weak black male placed side by side to the strong white male image. And of course, a lot of you have heard of Al Jolson. This was just him who played this role back in the day. And the jazz singers made lots of money with his burnt cork blackface routine. While using real black actors as background substitute, he took this concept to a different level by performing in comedy routines that were based on these distorted black images, since he was now in a position where he could project an image of who black people were. Again, note the exaggerated caricatures of the black person portrayed by Al Jolson. And he took these roles and played these roles and made a lot of money off of being pejorative to black people. And unfortunately, you've even had black women who were in these movies who were side by side with him. And, you would have people who would say, oh, well, it was, they didn't have no choice back then, and they had to do this, and they had to... Okay. And it says, black people could not do anything about this state of affairs, which eventually developed into something called minstrel or minstrelsy, which became the most popular form of entertainment in America for 50 years. Soap operas really last that long. So why was there such a fascination for 50 years with the distortion of the black image as the most popular form of entertainment? It was to put in the minds not only of black people and black children that, you are nothing, but to also put in the minds of white people that this is what you have. Be careful of these people. You know what I mean? So it's unfortunate, but that's what's happening. That's what happened then. And in some senses, it's still being done, because now you have people on college campuses who, I guess, whenever they feel it's, they want to do it, they, whether or not they choose a Halloween, and some of you have probably seen this, where they're dressing in blackface, with their fraternities and so forth, to demean and to be pejorative to black people. So it still happens. It still goes on. So anyways, y'all, let me know what you think. I'm going to stop here for now. And we're going to pick it up the next time. And we're going to be talking about the secret secretion. We have some real profound things for you. And we're going to of course, continue bringing you more of these podcasts. And we want to let you know, of course, we want to know what you think. And make sure that you smash the button for us, please. And we're going to continue to do this for you. Okay? So until next time, you guys have a great evening. And we will see you the next time. Okay? Have a good one.